Well, hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I have the great pleasure to be here with my colleague, Alan Lepovsky.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
And we make this quiz now. Who lives in California? Who lives in Canada?
It's cold in my office.
I'm the one with the short sleeves and the open shirt, right? I live in California, lucky enough of that. But Alan trumps me today with a purple constellation shirt, right?
There you go.
Excellent. So what we were to talk about with you today is about Microsoft's announcements coming out of their Convergence conference down in Barcelona, which caught us both to little point as a surprise, right?
Yeah, Microsoft's been doing so many new things this whole year. They've been extremely quick on releasing new features for Office 365 and the rest of the platform. But yeah, today they announced PowerApps, which I think you and I want to discuss.
Right, we want to talk about PowerApps, but let's be fair to everything they announced. And you know, I usually do press releases with going through the single lines of the press release. We're not going to do that today, but what we're going to do is we're going to quickly look at the overall press release, which is over here. You should be able to see it now. Alan, do you have it?
I do. It's up.
About what was happening in Barcelona. Obviously, it was Convergence, the European edition, and it started with announcements. It's interesting, right, with Office 365 capabilities, right, which is interesting because it's probably the most used product apart from Windows, so it makes sense for Microsoft to lead in this aspect today. What are your thoughts on them bringing Office back and doing things in Office?
Well, I think they've taken, the word office, and they've certainly expanded it to be more than what people expect, or what default people think of Office as, the PowerPoint, Excel, Word capabilities. But I think they've done a huge job at making Office kind of the overarching brand of everything they're doing. So when they talk about these new capabilities, Skype for Business is what used to be Link. So we're really talking about web conferencing and voice and video chat, and this new extension to replacing the hardware side of things. So this is huge. This PSTN calling, you being able to get company phone numbers through Skype worldwide. I think, basically they want to become the audio visual provider for your organization. So this is a big step up for what Microsoft was providing in the past.
Right, and it's a classic example of what I always call making a loan from the military area of the higher ground. You always want to have the higher ground of military setting here. Microsoft's higher ground, obviously, is Office 365. And I mean, so long they bought Skype, right? It's 3, 4, 5 years ago. So finally, these things, Link, Skype, everything is coming together, which I think people have been waiting for a long, long time, right? I mean, us, for instance, here using Google Hangouts to get this going with all the challenges we had before, which you usually don't have, right? We're not dissing Google here. But I mean, this should be so easy for us to say, hey, we're using Office internally, right? Alan is live, let's get this going. And it took us 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, perhaps we shouldn't be doing a video recording on Microsoft using Google Hangouts, but that's a topic for another day.
That's probably it, right? The software gods were not with us. We're trying to delve something here. But you've done a lot of work on Delve too, Alan, right? What's your take on putting more analytics on Delve?
Yeah, this is the part that excites me the most about today's announcement. So for those that aren't familiar with Delve, Delve is a user experience that aggregates together content from all across the Office 365 family. So instead of switching between tools, you get sort of a Pinterest-like card view of information in context to what you're doing. So if you select a topic, you can see all the files that are shared, the Yammer conversations that are going on about it, the profiles of the people that talk about it. It's sort of a dashboard that brings things together. And that's Delve itself. But then earlier this year, they announced this part called Delve Organizational Analytics. And as part of that same platform, what they want to do is they want to surface information to people about what they're doing and their colleagues are doing throughout the day, where you're spending your time in meetings, who do you meet with the most, do you spend time internally or externally, what time zones are you working in, et cetera. So it's really about sort of, I hate to use the cliche, but that Fitbit kind of culture that we have today where we want to track and analyze and get data back. We want to start doing that at work. So what's important to note about today's announcement is not only are they announcing the availability, but it's part of a specific Office offering called E5. And I think that's what people need to take away. This Delve Organizational Analytics will not be available to people unless they are on the E5 package. I have
And
very mixed feelings about that. Holger, I don't know if you want to talk about that, or I have mixed feelings about that.
about it being called E5 or having to
About
be
it,
in that package?
about it requiring E5. I think this new analytics capability, I would like to see it in the hands of as many users as possible. So requiring the E5 package, I think, is going to limit the amount of people that are going to have access to it. I certainly understand from a vendor perspective, providing value, an advanced feature, sort of like business intelligence and the BI sort of world requires a higher license. But honestly, I think I would have, for the first year out, at least tried to put this in the hands of as many people as I possibly could have.
Yeah, good point. I agree on that. But I mean, being the technologist here and built software for many years, I also understand two things. One thing is this is a total different animal from back office load perspective. If you enable all these analytics capabilities for Cortana, and also even frankly bread and butter PSDN service, right? And you might have very different logins, plugins. So you might have to move customers on a different version, platform, instance of Office, different data centers, and so on. And then secondly, I mean, I feel not being an analyst now, but being a software vendor, you have to find a way to make money, right? And there should be some correctly priced, assessing the value of it, pricing point for moving to that, which I also understand. But you have a good point. You want to have as much adoption as you want, build it and they will come. I think that aspects will be all standing and falling how easy Microsoft will make it to go to E5. Absolutely right.
I think especially just as part of trying to get a lead in an industry. This isn't a commodity tool that already exists like file sharing or something. This is, personal analytics dashboards are very new. It's something I'm covering a lot. And as Microsoft's investing heavily in this. They acquired Volumetrics a few weeks ago to help, or probably a few months ago, to help bolster this. So I get it. And certainly things like Skype meetings and PSTN and all of that, I understand is huge infrastructure. And I have no qualms about charging for that. I just would have loved to have seen Delve organizational analytics in the hands of more people. Now, I should be fair to say you don't necessarily have to buy E5. That feature can be an extra add-on to the other product families as well. So I don't know the exact price, but obviously as an add-on, it's less than the full upgrade to the E5 offering.
Good point. And quickly, the third part they announce is around security and compliance. And Steve Lockstep is Steve Wilson. Lockstep is his Twitter handle. So this is great for him, right? When Twitter handle becomes a brand name, right? Steve Wilson in Down Under looked a lot of 2 weeks ago. Satya Nadella had a huge event around security. Lockbox was one of the announcements. So let's not steal the thunder from Steve. But the good thing is that my view is that things are getting more tightened up at Microsoft, right? So they do a security piece, and 2 weeks later, Office 365 is using it. But let's quickly look at the second announcement. It was around Dynamics CRM 2016, now generally available. It wasn't better before. And normally something our colleague Natalie Paduhoff is covering, so just dabbling along here. But the interesting thing again is here, powered by Azure Machine Learning. Again, the same thing like previously we saw with Office, Microsoft leveraging synergies internally, activating things they've done around machine learning, Cortana, and bringing it to CRM, which has a high use in this, like they said down here, like meeting follow-ups, activities, surface proactive interactions, and voice-driven CRM, which are all good things to see. And now to the main thing, right, which was PowerApps.
Yep.
And I think the interesting thing on PowerApps is in general that there's been this disconnect between business users which wanted certain applications and then the technical people who were building them. And there was always something of a lost in translation between the two of them, which caused a lot of frustration. And now it's good to see that thanks to the advances that computing is cheap in the cloud, storage is no longer that expensive as it used to be. There's ways for enabling and empowering business users to build their own applications. What are your thoughts, Alan?
Yeah, so this term, let's throw out the marketing term for this, since we have to. Citizen developers, we would be unjust if we didn't mention that, has been around for a while. This concept of, a line of business application has to be built by someone who knows how to code in the past. So you would get the executives together with the developers, they would say their requirements, the developers would code them, and they would go back and forth. And the idea at the highest level of citizen developer is, I build the app myself. I don't have to get a developer involved. Now, there's been platforms around for decades that have done this. We can go all the way back to, Lotus Notes did this. There's Intuit QuickBase. Podio from Citrix has done this for a while. Holger, you probably cover a whole bunch of companies that do this. Salesforce One is sort of in this world. And I think there's pros and cons. I think it's excellent to allow people to easily build a small custom application that meets their needs. My issue is, from the years that I've been doing this, is if you make something so easy that everyone can do it, then everyone's going to do it. And unfortunately, that can end in things like inconsistency, different naming, different user experiences. One application says surname, one says last name, one has a button on the top left, one has a button on the top right. These little things actually matter. Professional developers have experience on user experience and user design, and they're professional developers for a reason. So there are ways of combating that. PowerApps is going to ship with templates, which are available, which is a great way to start. But I just think, organizations will have to sort of take into account how much free rein do we give non-IT to build applications. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, very, very good point, right? And very challenging nature. And the question I've been thinking about, like, what should a CIO, a leader on the IT side do, right? Probably you cannot stop this. You don't want to stop this because users will find another outlet to do things. I think the good news is, again, Microsoft doing the ecosystem play, because like I said in a quote to the press on this, it's two things which determine the success of end user development platforms. One of them is ease of use. You have to get that right. It has to be easy enough for non-technical user. If you don't get this right, you go out of business, right? So they will be self-selecting and Darwinism happening on this. But the other thing is the ecosystem advantage of that, right? If you have a logon already, if you can reach users already, right? Looking at the PowerApps website, they say it will be as easy as sending an email to distribute these applications. And with that, you have some of the control which IT needs to operate correctly in the enterprise, right? Because you can only send emails to a certain amount of people potentially. From an Active Directory perspective, you can control what's in the attachments. You can control what goes over the firewall. So I think IT leaders have to find the right balance in this and get the right creativity done. And maybe look at applications which business users have been asking to have and get to all the time and say, well, build this, right? Here's your sandbox. And there will be a learning curve, like you said. I think there will be people delighted with it and all of a sudden figure out, okay, this is why the technical guys said, really think about your requirements and don't change them again, right? Because now there's a steep learning curve for the business user to really think through what they want to automate, from the easy survey they're saying, but even to mission critical apps, which Microsoft's highlighting it here in the press release, they want to be able and empower people to build. So that requires some pre-thinking, and business users will learn it, but I think they will learn it. I think there's going.
Holger, switch over to your third tab there for a second as we talk about this, so people can kind of see a visual of this Power Apps. What I think is really important here, you mentioned the word platform, which I think is really important. And I think that's kind of the key of what Microsoft's trying to do here. This image that you've got up on your screen right now, it's this concept of bringing together. Here they're showing lots of things from their own platform. You've got OneDrive and Yammer and Skype and all sorts of other pieces, but they do go as far to show you Google Drive and Dropbox and Salesforce and SAP and Oracle. And I think that's what's important about this concept, is they want to make it easy for people to use the variety of applications that people use today to get their jobs done. And the less context switching people can do, the better. That's where I'm interested in, is from the productivity standpoint. And Microsoft, from the highest level down in the new Satya Nadella era, the mission statement of the entire company is reinventing productivity. And I think they've done a great job in the Office family doing that. And now we're seeing the dynamic CRM family, Azure hosting, Power BI family, kind of bringing it together. They're really telling the whole story across their platform, as opposed to each division sort of doing different things. And I think that's a really strong message from Microsoft.
Totally agree on this. And again, it's Microsoft bringing synergies together. I was at the Build conference early in May, and basically the same message was there for developers. Now it's there for end users building software. So it's using the same platform capabilities, the same partnerships and demos, opening APIs to SAP, using Oracle's database, which was a 3 year ago announcement, but now it's being available. If I'm a business end user and have data in Oracle database, I should be able to get to it with the Power BI platform tool. So I think it's probably the most diverse. I mean, it's just from this morning, we haven't done much due diligence, spoken to other vendors. It's probably the most diverse offering of end user programming from a launch, from the beginning. So good job from Microsoft from that perspective. Now we have to see how much they can really build with it.
All right. Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of news coming out of Barcelona, and from my perspective, I look forward to seeing the continued integration across the rest of the Office 365 portfolio. How collaboration fits into these apps is what's most important to me. It's not just me going off and building an app, but how do you and I work together? How does my team work together? How do I extend it outside of my organization to my partners, my customers, suppliers? And that's what we'll see as days are moving forward.
Yeah, it definitely changes the equation, right? Because for the first time, business users will be empowered to do things by themselves, right? It's going to be interesting how much IT leaders will allow them to do themselves. My advice would be let them do things by themselves as much as you can in guided frameworks, because if you don't allow them to do them, they will go somewhere else and will be outside of the remit. And we have this old debate, the CMO spending more than the CIO and so on. So it's going to be interesting how much help also Microsoft will give technical leaders how to corral business users, not just from controlling them and knowing what they do, but I think it's going to be very powerful to corral them and lead them to success of building these applications, because like many people have said, there's a need for so many applications. IT resources cannot build them all.
I agree. All right. Well, this is, I think, the last big conference for Microsoft in 2015, and they've had quite a big year. So I look forward to seeing 2016.
And the customer adoption of that. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for joining, Alan. This was great.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.